Nice, boy. That's really something, right? Because she's a good-looking girl. She's a good-looking woman. She's still good-looking, and she was great-looking in 1992. She's still a cutie pie. But anyway, she says that she's lying now for whatever reasons. It's no need. You could just own it and move on. It was been a long time ago. How many years is 1992? Man, that's 29 years ago. Talking about. I didn't know they were going to do that, and I was horrified. Stop lying. Stop it with that nonsense. It's done. It's over with. You done it almost 30 years ago. Ain't no sense in lying about it now, Sharon. Ain't no sense in that, baby girl. You ain't got to lie to kick it. You can do whatever you want. Say whatever you want in the media. Okay? But ain't no sense in lying about that scene. That was a great scene. That's a beautiful scene. It's a work of art. Stop lying now. Okay. Moving on. There ain't a lot to talk about in sports because the Ohio State Buckeyes basketball team, usually when we talk about the Ohio State Buckeyes, we're talking about their football team. The Buckeyes basketball team got beat in the first round of the NCAA tournament. They lost in the first round to a 15 seed. The Buckeyes played Oral Roberts University, and they got beat. So I'm disappointed in the Buckeyes. I was hoping that they could go to the Final Four. I thought they had a pretty good team that should have been able to at least make it to the Elite Eight, but they got beat in the first round. Unfortunately, for those of us who are Buckeye fans, are seeing this team go to the tournament, a tournament that they canceled last year because of COVID. You get your Buckeyes in there and they're looking good, like they got a good team, and they get beat in the first round by Oral Roberts. Are you kidding me? Oral Roberts, man. So, the Buckeyes lost. So, the NCAA tournament is moving right along, though. I've heard, that they're going into the Sweet 16 already. So they've already played the first and the second round, and now they're going to have the teams in the Sweet 16. So the tournament's moving right along without the Buckeyes, unfortunately. Yeah. And we'll see what happens. I'll report on it whenever it happens. Whatever happens, happens. And you'll hear it on this podcast. All right. We got to go to another quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about reparations because it's come up in political news. I was watching a couple of weeks ago. I was watching the Bill Maher show, Real Time. I think it's called. Pretty sure it's called Real Time on HBO, and he was talking about reparations with the Charlemagne the God. Charlemagne the God was on the show, and they were talking about reparations. So I'm just going to give you my opinion on reparations. Talking about reparations from slavery, and give you my opinion on that when we come back right after this.
You're listening to a man who's almost intelligent. Very close. Welcome back to Probably Offensive. One hell of a show. Yeah.
Yes. Welcome back. All right. Reparations from slavery is what the topic was. And I myself have gone back and forth on this. At one point, I thought reparations. And what reparations are, if you don't know, is reparations is when you've done someone wrong and then you give them a bunch of money for it. Like, hey, sorry about that, buddy. Reparations were promised to the slaves by President Lincoln, but they never was given. The slaves were freed and they didn't get anything. They just got freedom. Reparations were given to Irish people. I think it was Irish people. I don't know what for. I don't know what happened with Irish people that they got reparations, but they got some money from the government. Reparations was given to Japanese people around World War II. World War II. We were in a fight, a war with the Japanese, and the Japanese are the ones who bombed Pearl Harbor. So when that happened, all the Japanese Americans were rounded up and put into camps. They were like put in jail, basically, because they thought that the Japanese people might turn on us because we're fighting Japan. Japan bombed Pearl Harbor out in Hawaii. There was a naval base out in Hawaii called Pearl Harbor. For those of you who are only 15 minutes old, a young person who's 20 years old, they don't give a damn about history, so they don't know anything about this. So anyway, we had a military base in Hawaii in Pearl Harbor. Okay, so the Japanese bombed it, and we, as Americans, when I say we, the country, the government did this. I wasn't born. Rounded up all the Japanese, put them into camps so that they couldn't do any harm. And then after the war was over, they let them out. And then they gave them reparations. They gave them money. Be like, here, sorry about that whole putting you in camp thing. We didn't know, how y'all felt about being at war with Japan, because Japan was an ally to Hitler. So, the United States rounded up all the Japanese people and put them into camps. They didn't go around punching them in the face like these assholes are doing now. And we will get to some of this Asian hate crime stuff here in a minute. But when it comes to reparations, I've gone back and forth and thought, no, we shouldn't get reparations. They promised the reparations to slaves, not to people who were not born at that time. So giving me reparations is not the same as giving it to slaves. You should have gave that. They promised the slaves they would give them 40 acres also of land and a mule. Because at that time, a mule might be good. If you have 40 acres of land, you need, a mule. I guess you need a mule to carry stuff, or maybe to till soil, or whatever they use whatever you use a mule for. That's what they was going to give black people. 40 acres and a mule. I know some of you have heard of that phrase, 40 acres and a mule. That's where it came from. They promised the slaves, when you're freed, you'll get 40 acres and a mule and some reparations. Meaning we'll give you some money, we'll give you some land and a mule to help you get started, on your way. None of that happened though. They didn't give They did not give the freed slaves 40 acres. They didn't give them no mule. They didn't give them no reparations. So, on the show, on Bill Maher's show, he asked Charlemagne, the God. He asked Charlemagne if he thought that there should be reparations. And Charlemagne said, yeah. He said, well, what about the fact that none of these black people who are alive right now today were slaves? He said, we still should give reparations. This is what Charlemagne said. But my opinion is this: there should be reparations, because you never did give the reparations to the slaves, and you promised them you would give them reparations, and you didn't. So, you're a liar. You went back on your word, and you didn't help the slaves except freeing them. Some of the slaves went back to working for their former masters. They were not slaves anymore. They were getting paid, but they weren't getting paid enough to do anything with except for pay rent on the same place that they were living in when they were slaves. So they was back in the same situation, but they didn't get no 40 acres and a mule. That's why they went back to working for the same people, picking cotton, only getting enough money to pay the guy to rent the house that you probably had to build your damn self. But anyway, my opinion is reparations should not be paid in cash. Just giving people money was really not going to do anything. It may boost the economy for a short time because people have money. They're going to spend money. It's just like these stimulus checks. People get these stimulus checks and they just go out and spend money. Those of us who get a stimulus check and you've been working through the pandemic, you just have extra money. It's the people who had lost their jobs or, been laid off. Their unemployment ran out. They get a stimulus check. They're using that money to pay rent and stuff. Some of it. If you owe $2,800 on rent, you're not going to just give the landlord all your money. You're going to use some of it to do some other stuff. Get yourself a couple of hookers or something. Nah, I'm just kidding. You're probably going to use some of that stimulus money, part of it to pay your rent if you're behind on rent, but you use part of it to buy some food or, whatever you do with it, pay another bill. Maybe the electric bills. I'm behind on that or something. But if you get a stimulus check and you weren't behind on anything because you kept working right through the pandemic, then you're going to probably just go out and spend it on whatever you want. Probably just buy stuff that you wouldn't have bought before that you wanted. There's some stuff that you wanted that you wasn't going to buy. But now you got a stimulus check so you can buy it. So if you give black people reparations, that's what they're going to do with the money. Some of them, it's just spend it on dumb shit. Basically just, and I was thinking about getting a bigger flat screen TV. Now I'm going to do that. Or I was thinking about getting some rims put on my car. And now I can do that. You know what I'm saying? That's not really helping anything. You're just giving people money to spend haphazardly, and they're going to do that. To me, reparations should come in the form of training. I know that's boring, and I'm not just saying that to be politically correct, because I'm not politically correct. This podcast is probably going to, and already has, offended some people, but I'm saying this will probably be offensive too to some people that I'm saying this. Reparations should come in the form of training. job training. You got a lot of people who need some training.